Awesome. So, hey, how's it going, Aaron?
Great.
Good, good. Nice to finally meet you face to face.
I know. We've been emailing back and forth, and here we are.
Yeah, well, we still have like 4 months, so I hope you're not sick of me yet. There will be plenty more. Um, so I was just hoping we could kind of chat a little bit today so I can get to know you and our attendees can get to know you and we can hear a little bit, maybe get a sneak peek into what you're going to talk about at Delight. So, I guess if you want to just kind of start and tell me a little bit about where you're from, how you got to where you are at MailChimp now, what you did previously, sort of thing.
Yeah, so I've been the lead of user experience since 2008. I was hired, I think I was, maybe employee number 5 or something like that. So I was there early on. MailChimp's actually been around for a long time, though, since about 2001, technically. It started as a tool built by the Rocket Science Group, which was a web design agency, and it was just 3 people. And they basically created this tool for their clients to be able to send out a lot of email, and then that grew and grew because they started to get more clients coming in asking for help with email. And so there was a point like around 2007 where they're like, I think we could maybe just shift and let go of the agency stuff and just focus on this product. So they hired a lead engineer, and he started working on some infrastructure stuff, and then I was hired shortly thereafter, and then he and I started working on redesigning MailChimp, which was really amazing that we had that much freedom to rethink the brand, rethink the application, redesign it, and rewrite every line of code. So I think that was pretty cool, and I don't know if I'll ever get to have that type of freedom on a product again. But
Yeah.
so I've been there for 5 or 6 years, something like that now. Before that, I was actually a teacher. I taught for about 8 years or something like that.
Yeah, I saw that you were in Europe, I think it said too.
Yeah, I taught in Berlin for a little while. I taught at the Art Institute of Atlanta. I taught at Temple University, and I taught at the University of Georgia. I was teaching interactive design, and that's actually how I got connected with MailChimp. Was Ben Chestnut, who's the CEO and co-founder, used to come speak in my classes. He was a guest speaker, and I was an early MailChimp user. One of my classes was they did a lot of beta testing for them,
Oh, cool.
like in 2005. So Ben knew who I was, and when I was writing my first book, I was going to write about MailChimp. And I'm very interested in Delight as a conference and just as a topic because it's something that I've been interested in for a long time, and MailChimp I think has just always sort of had a natural affinity for is conveying personality in a product.
Yeah.
And that was one of my favorite things about being able to come in and have the freedom to rethink it, is that there was a potential shift happening with MailChimp where it was going to go a lot more corporate, a little bit more conservative, because at the time, a long time ago, it didn't have as many features and wasn't as mature as it is today. Plus, the brand was very informal, and that was a combination that was working against them. But I always felt that the name, the brand, and the personality, like the humor and delight that was built into the application, was what attracted me to it as a customer before I worked there. And I think that's just a part of the co-founders, that's just who they are, and it really comes through in the product. So I love that. I love that I get to do that sort of thing every day with a lot of other people that are like-minded and are creative and thinking about the same type of stuff.
Yeah, it seems like you guys are having a lot of fun with it, and I saw you just recently launched the UX newsletter, and was it a redesign that just also happened too, or I know
Yeah,
you guys
pretty big one.
launched a few things?
So we just redesigned Mailchimp, and it was a pretty big project. It came from some research that we were doing. We started to see last year some requests for mobile-related stuff. And so as we started to investigate that further, we did a lot of traveling to lots of places in the world to meet with customers. And the more we listened, it wasn't just about, I want to use my mobile device. It was the reason why they wanted to use their mobile device is that they were doing work in lots of different places, and 24 hours was just not enough to get things done in a day. So going to work for 8 hours to try to get your to-do list knocked out, it just didn't cut the mustard. So a lot of people were working on mobile devices because there's this perceived sense of found time, that I can find some time by grabbing my mobile device when I'm in line at the store, and maybe I could check in on something, I could complete a small task. These micro engagement periods that extend the workday. That can be a good thing or a bad thing, but I think that's just the nature of work today, is that we have lots and lots of connected devices, billions of connected devices that keep us always connected with one another and our customers. And so that's why we did this redesign, is that it wasn't about mobile devices, it was about more people collaborating with each other to try to get work done quicker, more people using devices to extend the workday to get things done. And I think that just the modern workflow is different today.
Yeah, definitely. Well, that's great. That's really exciting to see, just kind of leading right up to Delight. So I actually just got a chance to finish your book last night, so that was awesome.
Great.
So in there, you talk about how design is just often thought of as the indulgent frosting on a functional interface. So can you talk a little bit about like the importance of design and the true value of it in delivering delightful experiences?
I think design says a lot about a brand and sets expectations. I mean, if we were to talk about this in a different context, instead of talking about design, but just talking about how our eyes shape so much of our behavior and our perceptions of the world, how we relate to one another. There are certain situations where we dress a certain way, we act a certain way, our body language changes. All of these things are visual representations of who we are and what's going on in our mind and how we want to relate to somebody else. When you go to a job interview, you tend to dress up and look nice, comb your hair, to make sure that you make a good impression. And design is, I'm sort of oversimplifying it, but design has a similar effect on people, that there's a perception of, can I trust this product or service? Is this something that captures my interest? Do I, in the case of something like Mint.com, design shapes your decision whether or not you want to put a lot of financial information into a third-party service, and can I trust that? And that was a big factor in whether or not they actually were going to get money to fund the company and get off the ground. But design is, through color and type, layout, illustration, photography. These are all things that help us. They're mechanisms to say, this is who we are, this is our value system, and it can help a person kind of be more attracted to what you're offering. And I think a lot of times, it is perceived as frosting or as unnecessary but nice. And I highly disagree with that. I feel like design, good design, carefully considered design, is so integral to the success of a product, because it shapes that first impression that people have of your product. It shapes a purchasing decision, because so much of our decision-making process is driven by emotion. By default, it's driven by emotion, and then secondarily, it's driven by logic. And logic helps us make up our mind about certain things, but a lot of times we just make a decision based on gut. Why did you buy that product? It just felt right. It looked good. I like it. These are all intangibles. How do I sum that up? I sum that up by saying, this collection of my history and what's going on in my head and my personality, the things that I know I'm attracted to, they transpired into this one interaction right here with this product that made me fall in love and really want to own that thing or be part of that. Or sometimes I buy that thing because it says something about me. It's how I tell the world, this is who I am. So we align our personalities with other personalities to tell everybody else, this is how I want you to see me. So when we're designing products, we have to keep these kind of core values of humanity in mind that can help us improve conversion rates. Will people purchase? Will people stick around and use something? Will they love it so much that they want to tell a lot of people? And I think that that's what the conference and the concept is really all about, is not just that this is something that fulfills my basic needs. I can do what I need with this thing. That's sort of like the basis. But going further to make someone really have a strong passion or connection, affinity for what it is you're making. That's something we do through design. It's something we do through copy. It's something we do through customer service, our behaviors and relationships that we create.
Yep. Yeah, so you talk about kind of the intangible side of that, and it really is intangible. So how do experienced designers, content strategists, digital strategists, the people that understand that those experiences are built through all these different components, how do you make the case for designing for emotion to stakeholders that are still kind of rooted in that idea that it's nice to have, but we'll focus on design later, or that kind of thing?
I think a lot of times stakeholders that are very bottom line driven, the best way to convince them is with metrics, with numbers. And my book, the very last chapter, is about convincing your boss. And I specifically share a lot of concrete numbers of, here are 3 case studies of companies that made a shift from something that was very functionally designed to something that had a clear sense of personality. And in having that personality, yes, it does alienate some customers, but it also attracts a lot of customers that it wouldn't have. It creates a much stronger relationship with customers that it otherwise wouldn't have. And it creates, just exponentially more powerful marketing than, going out there and having something that's very run-of-the-mill and then just pounding with all of your energies to try to get people to make a purchase. But personality and emotion in design is what's going to make you stand out from the crowd. It's what's going to bring people to you. And you can see that through some case studies and some numbers of we had 200% increase in sales, we had X number increase in conversions, whatever it is. A lot of times with those skeptical stakeholders, you have to do small experiments instead of a big thing. So getting permission to do a big redesign is a lot more difficult than saying, I'm going to take this one piece, this one campaign, and I want to really think about this from an emotional design perspective, and I want to compare. I want to get a baseline of what we had before, and then get the stats of what we had during that campaign, and see, did we make an improvement or not.
Yeah, and I thought it was actually really interesting how you talked about the one specific example. I don't know which section of the book it was in, but when you were talking about kind of keeping those users engaged with MailChimp particularly, how you guys have helped people kind of overcome. Actually, no, I don't think it was MailChimp. It was Dropbox, I believe. Creating those delightful little moments can help people stick through the process and kind of overcome obstacles. I think you were talking about a little bit. I thought that was interesting too.
So there is a principle called the aesthetic usability effect, which is just the principle is that, and it's based on a lot of research, that aesthetically pleasing products are perceived to be more usable, even if they aren't quite as usable as a competitor. And the example that's often used for that is the first iPod when it came out. There were strong competitors that had been out before them. There was the Rio MP3 player, which I owned. It lacked in some features, but more than anything, it was just very obtuse to use. And it wasn't very attractive. But the iPod, it came out, and so technically on my Rio, I could get to songs faster because it had a very simple kind of directional menu. But with the iPod, their tagline out of the gate was 1,000 pockets in your 1,000 songs in your pocket rather, and it had the jog wheel. So you're jogging around, 1,000, spinning my thumb over and over again until I get thumb cramps. Yeah. But so it's not entirely as usable, but it's perceived to be more usable because you're flipping through all those artists, and it just seems so fun. And there's a nice little click. The design is based on the golden ratio. It's so elegant and simple. So even though it technically was not quite as usable in terms of like time to complete task than its competitor, it was perceived and has always been perceived as a usability triumph. Great example. So the aesthetic usability principle is that's what that is. But then there's in the book I talk about extending that to emotional design. This emotional design principle that as you're going through difficult processes in an application, if you make people feel good along the way, if you can put them in a positive frame of mind, they can overcome usability challenges a whole lot better than if it's just either sort of like basic and functional, because the needle's sort of tipping towards, I don't like this, I'm frustrated. But if you've already front-loaded that so people are enjoying, having a lot of fun, okay, fun's going down a little bit, they'll work through the problems, they'll solve the problems better than if they were in a negative mood. So when you can create these moments of delight, they are additive, they add up, and they stick in your long-term memory. You remember these good moments, and then when you encounter difficult stuff, you think, all right, I'm going to stick with this because it feels good. There's something, I have a good connection here, I'm going to keep on going.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, one of the questions I wanted to ask you earlier, too, was about connecting, making that human connection again. You talk a lot about it through the design lens, but I know a lot of people rely on like social media, for example, to make that human connection between the brand and the consumer. But what I think is really interesting about MailChimp is that you guys tend to carry that experience across whatever medium it is, whether it's the design or it's social media or content on your site or any resources that you publish. So to you, I mean, you talked about design personas too, which I thought was an interesting concept because we as marketers talk more about, the audience persona or that sort of thing. So can you talk a little bit about the design personas and how that's helping shape experiences on your site, for instance?
Yeah. So design personas are, the idea with them is that historically we're always asking, who are they? Who's our audience? Let's understand them. Let's try to get in their head. Part of it is to create empathy. Part of it is to help us design products that to a user base's needs. But in real life, when we create strong relationships with the people that we love and we care about the most, we make strong friends, personal relationships. We understand who we are. We kind of get to this mature point in our life where we understand who we are and what our needs are. And we understand what this other person's needs are and what their personality is. And when you understand the two personalities, you can figure out where the good fit is. So design personas are asking the question, not who are they, but who are we? You try to define, these are our values, so it's a cultural exercise to some extent. In figuring out who you are, you figure out how you speak to your customers. What kind of copy you might write, or what's the voice, how you interact with them. The thing about design personas is that they, when you go through that exercise and you start to understand who you are, it starts to influence who you hire. And when you hire the right group of people that kind of fit that same personality as this group that you have, this tribe that you're building, you can hire a better fit of people that you want to work with, people that are kind of moving in the same direction. And that tribe of people are going to be able to communicate more consistently and effectively, and probably work together better too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. So how are the design personas helping you guys to deliver surprise and delight in interactions, I guess, recently?
I think at this point it's kind of become like subconscious for us. There was a point at which I created that design persona, which I'll be honest, it was sort of like this persona or personality of MailChimp emerged, and I was kind of pulling that together and defining it. You know, the edges of we are this, we are not that. Um, that always helps us, though, if we are not this. Like, we can look at a tweet and say, no, we wouldn't talk that way. So that's very helpful. But I think at this point we all kind of know what MailChimp is about. And so the things that we make are always driven by that personality in our subconscious.
Hmm. Yeah, it's definitely just very ingrained in across the board. So as far as Delight goes, what types of tools or resources can attendees expect to gain from you?
Tools or resources.
You don't have to name any specifics now. I guess, like, types or.
Well, I want to talk about some like bigger, broader issues about the way that humans think and interact with one another, and then I want to try to tie that down to product design, like physical products and digital products, and I'm going to give comparisons of this is good, this is great, what's the difference here, why is this one more effective than another. Talk about design personas and how you shape the voice of a brand, and talk about how that shapes a company's culture as well. So I feel like that's a big part of, it's one thing to say, we want to make a product that is delightful. What does that mean? It's very nebulous, but I feel like it's never going to be genuine if you don't have a culture that embraces that and drives that. So I'm going to talk about that too.
Great. So what about you? What are you looking forward to at Delight?
I'm looking forward to the comparison to see how all these different companies that do such different things and serve such different customers, what's common and what's unique across the different organizations. If there's something to be learned about how they use storytelling, let's say, to communicate, or how they shape their personality of their brand. I think that's going to be really interesting.
Yeah, definitely. And I had one question from Margot Blumstein, who is doing our content strategy workshop on day one. And she's also, I know, a big MailChimp fan. So give me 1 second. She was really curious about what the ROI on these hats are.
Infinity.
And can we expect to see any hats at the event?
It's hard to say. Those are hard to come by. Those are exclusive.
They are hard to come by. I had to fight somebody for this at CMS
cat
Expo.
Hats too, hand knit cat hats. But I mean, we do stuff like that because it feels like a luxury to us to be able to make something not to make money, but to make someone smile. And we think that a smile is more valuable than money. And it's not that we are utopian hippies dancing in some kind of a circle here in Atlanta. It's that we know that if we can make people really happy, they're going to tell other people about us, and we're going to hopefully get more customers, and that will lead to MailChimp growing bigger and bigger. So
world domination.
Yes, by smiles.
Well, that's awesome. Well, anything else that we should know about your presentation, or anything about you, I guess, for Delight?
I think that covers most of it. I'm excited to meet folks. If people want to ask questions beforehand or during or after the presentation, I'm Aaron on Twitter. It's 2 A's and 2 R's because my dad misspelled my name at the hospital. But yeah, it's just my first name, so I'm happy to field questions.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much. I'm looking forward to meeting you in person
Likewise.
and seeing you in November then, or October. Jeez.
Over, yeah.
Yeah, sneaking up on us. But so thank you, and I guess we'll be talking on Twitter.
Okay. Take care.
See you later.